Green card, marriage, negative indicators. I'm Attorney Pandeli, and I'm a managing attorney of Attorney LLC. We're here at the Attorney LLC offices taking this video. And I wanted to cover this because it's quite important, because it gives you some insight inside the training and the overall thinking of immigration officials. And so in something called the AFM, Adjudicators, the Field Manual, or the manual that USCIS officials use to get trained on and make decisions, there are several indicators there that show or give an official that a certain immigrant couple might not have what's called a bona fide marriage, or might not have what's called a valid marriage. And I'm going to go through those indicators here in detail and then explain some of them and any discrepancies or anything that comes up, okay? And so the first negative indicator or negative proof which counts against you typically is a large age disparity. Now you might think that, well, you know, there's non-traditional marriages all over the place, and that happens all the time, and you're right, that's absolutely the case. You know, and there's no hard and fast rule in terms of, well, what is the age gap under which you're okay and over which you're not. If you think about it, the way that USCIS, Citizenship and Immigration Services, makes decisions, they make it on what's called a totality of circumstances test. And so the totality of circumstances test really says that you look at all the evidence and then you make a judgment call. And so there's some parts of evidence where if you don't meet that requirement, you're automatically denied. But there's a bunch of others for which, like for example, the evidence of having a valid marriage, that they really at the end of the day, looking at their experience and other cases that I've dealt with, they make a judgment call. And so large age disparity is one of them. You can expect that, you know, probably 7 years or less, or even 10 years or less, it's okay. But you know, as you go above that range, it starts getting a little trickier. So relationships that are non-traditional, and typically you have a 20 age gap or things like that, those are a little more of a concern, and you want to talk to an attorney and so they can see how they can help you with that. The second indicator is the inability of the partners to speak the same language. And so for example, if the spouse only speaks one language and then the US citizen only speaks English, for example, and they cannot communicate in the same language, that's a little bit of a problem. And now you might say, yeah, but that happens, you know, and so people go and get married abroad, and sometimes they figure life out, and sometimes they use gestures, and we've seen it happen, and we've had many clients that this has happened for and is dealt with. Again, it's totality of circumstances, it's not any one thing, but sometimes this might be little signs. A third requirement, not requirement, but the third negative indicator is vast cultural differences and ethnic backgrounds. And so again, the law is silent here on exactly what that means. But you know, and you can do various examples here, and it's hard to, if I give you an example, that you will not be kind of confined to that example. Like for example, you know, if I tell you that you have a Christian man and a Muslim wife, and there's other differences, and there might be racial differences, there might be I don't know. The problem with any one example is that you could give, you know, literally hundreds of other examples where that's happened and it's fine, and it's true. You know, these differences, they're taken into account together, okay? So it's not just any one thing. So it's not just, you know, your ethnic differences. If you're from different countries, clearly you would be from different countries or races or religions or things like that. But sometimes when they're taken into their totality, that's when they think, well, maybe this is not real. So other things are the negative publicity proof, I call it, and in the manual, really it's about they state that family and or friends are unaware of the marriage, and so really when you think about it, a marriage is a public commitment that you want to be with this person for the rest of your life, and that's made public. And so the lack of publicity is a concern, and so sometimes one way to rebut this is to get affidavits from various people that know you, or church members or staff or what have you. There's various ways to get around this this negative proof. Another point that they make is the timing of the marriage. So if the marriage was made, for example, literally they say marriage was contracted immediately following the beneficiary's apprehension, or them being placed in removal proceedings. So for example, if the urgency of the marriage comes as a result of you are about to leave the country, then that signals them that, well, hey, maybe this was not a marriage that was with the intent to get married, but it was done with the intent to get an immigrant benefit. So that's another one to look at. There is discrepancies in statements on questions which both the husband and wife should have common knowledge about. So if they ask you things like, when was the last time you went on a date? Or how did you file your taxes? Or there's a number of questions which both people should be familiar with, or like how often does your husband go to work, or where is your husband's work, or where's your wife's does she go to the gym or something like this. If it's a question that you should know about, and sometimes they can be quite detailed, and you don't respond to these questions well, that shows a red flag that you're not living together and you're not sharing life together. And so that's another negative proof point. No cohabitation since marriage. This is major. This is a major one, and we've had plenty of people who come to us after getting denied that because their application got denied, their petition got denied. And so one of the things they look at, are you living together? So part of a married life is that you have to live together. Now you might say, well, I'm out for work and things like that, and that does happen. However, the point is, where's your domicile? Where are you together? Where are you living? How in contact are you? It's things like that. And sometimes the manual gets a little bit ridiculous, like for example, saying that the beneficiary is a friend of the family. So even it's a negative indicator that the beneficiary was a friend of the family. And here they're really signaling that this was entered into to get an immigration benefit, and not really for love. So it's not a marriage for love, or a marriage to be married, but a marriage to get an immigration benefit. And because that's how you got introduced, that could be a problem. Although the flip side is that, well, a large part of the marriages happen, or people get introduced to one another from friends, because what else do you have? And so again, it's the totality of the circumstances, right? So if that comes up and there's very little evidence of other things, then they might actually consider that factor to be really important. And then lastly, the manual says that it's a negative indicator that the petitioner filed previous petitions on behalf of aliens, of other aliens, especially alien spouses. So for example, if the U.S. citizen has done this before, and there's been other alien relatives, especially spouses, that the petitioner did this for, that maybe that could signal that, again, this is done to procure an immigration benefit, and there might be even some kind of outside arrangement where there's money being paid and things like that. And so for that reason, they consider it a negative indicator. Again, none of these indicators on their face will deny you your green card benefits, but sometimes several of them taken together and taken in conjunction with the rest of your case. If the rest of your case doesn't look good, then these are some indicators that they must rely on. So it's really about how strong of the case have you put forward. And the downside of putting forward a weak case is that you could be denied, and you could even be placed in removal proceedings, which is another word for deportation. And so the stakes are quite high. We suggest you contact an attorney. It's going to cost a lot less than the alternative. Thank you for watching.